All right, we're looking at circumference and of area of circle worksheet. Hopefully you've done your notes for this. So if you want to kind of follow along, in my circle book, the notes are on the second page. I've got area here, circumference, exact and approximate, and that's what I'm going to be using for this. So I will reference back to them. So I'm just going to do a couple in each section. We're going to look at number 1, but first we're going to read the directions. Find the area of each circle. Give the exact answer in terms of pi, and the approximate answer using 3.14. And that's what we're going to use. If you have a pi button, go for it. You're going to get a slightly different decimal than I am for the approximate answer. I'm going to use 3.14 in this. Okay, so I'm looking at number 1, and I want to find the area. So I'm looking up here. I've got them up here. I've also got them on my circle book notes. And I'm going to use area is pi r squared. So in this case right here, that's my r, is 12 inches. I know it's the radius because it goes from the center of the circle to the edge. So I'm going to say area equals pi 12 squared. Okay? For my exact answer, that's 144 pi inches squared. I like to put pi second. It just looks prettier. Pi in front would be the same. I wouldn't mark anybody down for that, but you'll see this more often. That's my exact answer. Okay? Now, for my approximate answer, I'm just going to, instead of put pi, put 144 times 3.14. And I'm just going to put that in my calculator, 144 times 3.14, and I get 452.16 inches squared. Whenever we do area, we should have inches. So that's just what it's looking for all of these in the first section. I'm going to move down to the next section and look at number 9. Find the circumference. So I'm going to write the circumference down, 2 pi r equals c. I can also use pi times diameter if I had the diameter, or I could just do that first. Again, doesn't matter. Radius for this one, I am given 8 is the radius. Okay? Remember, again, I want my exact answer in terms of pi, and then my approximate answer. So I'm going to go 2 pi times 8, and then I'm just going to multiply the 2 and 8 together because I want to leave pi alone. So I get 16 pi miles. Remember, we are not timesing it by pi for that answer, so we should have 2 answers here. And then I'm going to go 16 times 3.14, giving me 50.24 miles for my approximate answer. Okay, one is the exact, one is the approximate, and that's the equal sign, and that's the approximate sign. Squiggly lines are the approximate. Okay, again, I could have in my head done 8 times 2 is 16 and then used diameter for that. It's doing the same thing. I'm just not given the diameter in this case. Okay, we are going to move on to the back, and we are going to look at number 17 first from this section. So this is just written a little bit differently. It says for the directions, calculate the radius of each circle. Use the pi button on your calculator when finding your answers. We can use 3.14 for this as well, though, if you don't have a pi button on yours. And round to the nearest tenth. Okay, so let's remember what circumference is one more time. So you can look on the front, you can look in your circle book. Circumference is 2 pi r. It says find the radius. So we don't have the radius here, but we do have circumference. So that C right there for circumference, I can replace with 62.8 equals 2 pi r. All right, I need to figure out what r is. 2 and pi are all times by r. So I can divide, I like to do it at once. I take the 2 and the pi, divide by 2 and the pi, and again you can say 3.14 instead if you don't have a pi button on your calculator. And I get the radius equals 10 miles. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and we are going to go down to number 21, this next section here. Find the diameter of each circle. Use the pi button when finding your answer. Round to the nearest tenth. Now, it says diameter. So in a lot of these cases, the formula involves radius. So whatever we have, we may have to times it by 2 to find the diameter. So we're looking right here, and we know that the area is 201.1 inches squared. So if we know that the area formula is area equals pi r squared, we're going to replace A, stands for area, with this number. So we're going to go 201.1 equals pi r squared. First thing we're going to do is divide by pi, or divide by 3.14. Okay, you can just think of those kind of interchangeable at this point. I prefer the pi button, but I know a lot of you don't have a calculator with that. So we get 64.044 equals r squared. Now, whenever we have a squared, we're going to take the square root of it to get rid of it. So we're going to have to square root this. And I get approximately 8. That's approximately my radius. But it doesn't ask for the radius, remember, it asks for the diameter. So the diameter would have to be 16. It's my diameter. Okay. All right, number 23. Find the circumference of each circle. Okay, so we have the area. We're going to have to figure out what the radius is and then plug it into the circumference formula. So if area equals 64 pi meters, we know area is pi r squared equals 64 pi. That means that r squared has to be 64. We could do that by dividing both sides by pi. They would go away. R squared equals 64. Then we're going to square root both sides. And we get r equals 8. Okay, so that's my miles. I have 8 miles, but it asks me for my circumference. So now I have to remember what my circumference formula is. Circumference equals 2 pi r. So I need to put that in there. So I'm going to go 2 pi times 8. So I'm just going to go 16 pi miles and leave it at that. It gave it me in terms of pi, so I gave it in terms of pi. Okay. All right, we're going to go all the way down to number 27. This is kind of a question that is asking you to think. There is also a spelling error, so let me read it without. Find the radius of a circle so the area and the circumference are the same. Okay, so first of all, we know we want pi r squared to equal 2 pi r. Okay, we want them to be equal to each other. I have done this a couple of ways, so I'm going to show you both. If you divide both sides by pi, they cancel, and you get r squared equals 2 times r. So then I think to myself, what thing do I get when I square it? I get 2 times that number. Another way to think of this is if you have the radius, the circumference, and the area. We want the circumference and the area to be equal. So if I plug in a radius of 0, okay, I am going to get 0 times 2 is 0, times 3.14 is 0. But that doesn't really help me, right? Because you can't really have a radius of 0. So if we try 1, 1 squared is 1 times 3.14 would be my area. And if we go 1 times 2, that's 2 times 3.14, we will get 6.28. So those don't match. So let's keep going, and we can try 2. 2 times 2 is 4, and we end up with 4 pi. And then 2 times 2 is 4, and we end up with 4 pi on that side. That's where we end up matching, is when the radius is 2. So that's the answer. Find the radius when they're both the same. The answer is 2. Okay, so that's it for our circumference and area worksheet. We will go ahead and stop this, and then I will do equations of circles.